I'm just going to get started with the introduction. Lak olas. Put your canoe ashore and rest. Okay. Introduction. Lak olas. Put your canoe ashore and rest. The place of my birth, they call it the Kitlop. My name is Wahid, given to me by my people. Wah is the river. Haid is good, good river. Sometimes the river is not good. I am a Khanaksila. I am from the Killer Whale clan. I would like to walk with you in Khanaksila lands. Where I will take you is the place of my birth. They call it the Kitlop. It is called Hushtawashtu, for the blue milky glacier water. Our destination is what I would like to talk about, and a boat. I call it my magic canoe. It is a magical canoe because there is room for everyone who wants to come into it to paddle together. The currents against it are very strong, but I believe that we can reach that destination and that this is a reason for our survival. When you leave Kitimat, this is Heiseland, you go out to, they call it Gardner Canal. You go into Gardner and Crab River is where our boundary line was before the amalgamation of the Khanaksila and the Haisla. Haisla and Khanaksila share the same language with a few word differences. Our language is close to the language family of Rivers Inlet. You can get the Haisla history from Gordon Robinson. When I bring the boat into Khanaksila land, the tide will bring us through. There's a story for that. From Crab River, we enter the Kitlop Valley. The Kitlop has many, many rooms, many doors. There's a lot of history going up to the Kitlop Lake. Kitlop Lake, if we manage to journey that far, is what I call the cathedral, a spiritual place. It is quiet. I think if you experience something when we get there, our people say that you will not leave that place unchanged. You cannot leave the way you went in. Something touches you. Something grabs you within that you've never identified as yours. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I didn't expect that. But something in there reveals a little of who we are. When we get to the Kitlop, I'm going to ask you to wash your eyes. Our story says that though you may have 20/20 vision or glasses that improve your vision, we are still blind to lots of things. Sorry, I think I'm getting emotional because the picture that's shared here is I'm in that canoe. I'm right in the middle of that canoe and I was pregnant with my son, my firstborn. So sorry for the tears. It's just, I resonate with that because I did find something that was mine there. Okay, sorry. We are blind to Mother Earth. When you bathe your eyes in the artery of Mother Earth that is so pure, it will improve your vision to see things. I will also ask you to wash your ears so you can hear what goes on around you, so I could hear you talk. I could hear the wind and you can hear the birds and the animals. If you have the patience to listen, to hear the songs of the birds early in the morning, all these things will be open to you. We are so busy, we don't have time for all of these beautiful things. If you have the willingness and courage to do that, you will see little things that you have never seen before. You will take a better look at your children, your grandchildren, your best friend, and you'll say, oh, I never saw that before. To get that vision back, and when you get that back, you'll be more kind to whoever comes in your path on this journey. There are many legends we talk about to our children, and above all, the people around the universe that came with their love and compassion to save something that is known around the world, the largest unlogged temperate rainforest in the world. There's a photo of Baba Cecil Wahid. This next part is called So Many Arrows Came Our Way, 1792 to 1941. So many arrows came our way. I bring my children and grandchildren to the Kitlop every year, starting when I was well. I try to teach them where I was born and teach them about the beauty of the place. Much of what I say was taught to me by my grandmother, my grandfather, and my uncles. My late grandmother, Annie Paul, was a leader of our people. She was a matriarch of our family. We were dying off so fast due to foreign diseases that when industry came in, there was only a few of us left. Granny was the first to speak in the negotiation with the chief and council of Haisla to amalgamate with the Kitlop band. The Kitimat band welcomed us for amalgamation on March 10, 1948. Amalgamation took place 4 years before Alcan moved into Kimano territory. We tried to protect our homeland the best way we know how. My people have done it for 10,000 years. With the power of our Creator, we can guard it and keep it the way it is today. On amalgamation, there were only a few Hanaksila left. It was Granny who feared that we'd lose everything. The amalgamation was done by the Indian agent. He was stationed in Bellacoola. The document states, this was a proposal that had been under discussion for considerable time. The only opposition was from the chief of the Kitlop, who did not want to relinquish his somewhat imaginary authority. How do you trust this Indian agent who wrote that? For him to say the somewhat imaginary authority was wrong. The chief of the Kitlop had the authority to serve not himself, but the people. The opposite of the Canadian government's way of thinking. My brother Joe is on the amalgamation document. He signed it the day we amalgamated, 1948. Gerald, Bruce, and I were born a few years too late. It was my friend Charlie Shaw that got the papers from the archives. When I got really sick, I burned a lot of papers, and I had those papers on the census, an amalgamation in my hand, and something tells me, hang on to this one. I hang on without knowing and waiting. I had it in my hand, and I thought I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to make the year. Maybe I was waiting for you. The story of why we amalgamated is told in the census papers, where the government said how many Indians left in the concentration camps at Kitlop. How many? 30 people. What year? 1934, Kitlop Reserve. In the column under 7 years, it says male, 2. One is me, the other is my brother. When I sat down and first saw the document, my wife came down and she sees tears in my eyes. Duti Sina, tell me what those tears are for. In our verbal history, according to my little granny and all the chiefs, each one of them said, we numbered over 700. I heard some stories. When I close my eyes, I go back to the teaching of my 3 elders. I ask them, in Sikolas, how many of us Hanaksila? And they all came out, not the same number, but close, eh? How many? When you begin to hear this story, the 3 of them told me, Lake, it's past 7. Oh, 700, I say. Kiuhunuch, Apin, Kedika. No, my child, it is more than that. They mentioned all their villages. They didn't live in one village like today, a reserve here and there. In those days, my uncle told me, just around Kitlop Lake alone, there's 4 villages, 5 clans, the Raven, Killer Whale, Eagle, and the Beaver. Used to be Salmon and Wolf too. Look at what they're telling me. Akon Gom Suwihe, white man has come. Okwen Gom Sihe, white man has come. I believe it was an Indian agent who came and distributed blankets to the chiefs and people, and they were contaminated. Our story said that they gave away infected blankets. They called them ugly blankets. Yayaksta. At the time, the government had a chemical warfare to get rid of the Indians. When I found that out years later in Bella Bella, I went to Winnipeg. I asked the chiefs what happened. In Queen Charlotte's, that chief, who was an Alberni too, and a really good friend of mine, he brought me to Skidans. The whole village was wiped out. Not one person left, but when he brought me there was a lot of totem poles, some standing, lots on the ground, all died of this disease. So it went right across Canada, this chemical warfare on how to kill an Indian. When they were mapping out the reservations, the government sent out a guy to tell the Haisla what the reservation is going to be. Our big chief told him, what ways? The mountain tops, where the first little stream starts from the mountain and comes down to our valley, to the hot spring, all the way down the channel as far as Buttedale, and all the way up to the headwaters of Kitimat. As big chief, he knew all the boundary lands of different Watwayases, down the coast and further back. That's home, that's all our place. And the chiefs try to tell this guy, the surveyor, they ask, who's speaking for the Haisla? And that guy didn't listen. He wrote to the Indian agent, the Haisla had 35 acres, and he described this village, this place here, you can't cultivate it, couldn't plant nothing. It's all rocks. There's a little stream coming down, but that's the one you cross, and either side of the river is rows of wild crab apples, which Indians like, your obedient servant. That whole valley of people, the Haisla people with woolkin fishing, only got a small portion of Haisla land where they grew up, but that whole valley was Haisla. The chief asked, what is this 35 acres of rocky soil? Concentration camp for Haisla people? This was just a summer camp. They didn't understand that, and Kitlope was no different. That was when you start to mistrust. I often wondered what would have happened if some guy had written back, nobody's going to educate the Indian. We got a few crab apples, your obedient servant. There was a bad friction between the Indian agent and the chiefs. They told him, you can't have that, that's our home. Why are they putting this reservation there? But our people didn't know what was happening. They had a sense that these people were bad. There was an argument. And from Victoria, they had a warship called Cleo, which came and anchored there. Now it is Cleo Bay. Was it too quiet, the natives down? I really don't know. And it shows a picture of his Granny Clara, or, oh no, his mother. I'll turn it over to Brioni, who will share the next part, which is Journey in the Magic Canoe. Dustin, you might have to unmute Brioni, and
there we go.
Yeah, and then if you go to Annie Paul, the queen of my family, 96 years old when she died. Her husband is Chief Johnny Paul, Chief Hamdeed. My mother Clara, who holds the title of the great chief lady, which my brother Dan held, Chief Gupskolok. And that is her husband, who is a Kilauea clan chief, Thomas Paul, my father. He was only 42 years old when he died of tuberculosis. Very young. My auntie, his sister, died too, only 40. My brother Leonard, they talk about the Miller Bay Hospital. That is where my brother died, in the TB hospital in Prince Rupert, only 20 years old. A year and a half later, after Leonard passed away, the miracle drug they called streptomycin came in. All the hospitals were filled with my people, Miller Bay, Kokalitsa, Nanaimo. All Army and Air Force hospitals were filled with Indian people with tuberculosis. Inside 1 year, when streptomycin came into hospitals, a miracle happened. Wish my brother had lived long enough to see that miracle happen. I praise society for coming up with something to penetrate that thing that tuberculosis has, the germ. No other drug would penetrate that to arrest what took my people. Now, only 4 of us left, 4 full-blooded Hinoxula people. 3 ladies, my little sisters Louisa and Vieta, and Lily and Henry, my cousin. Now, out of 700 or more, we are sitting across from the only male left from Kitlope. Kimano Cemetery is where I'm going to be when I go to sleep. So many arrows came our way. It has a photo here of Johnny Paul and Thomas Paul. And then his Annie Paul. His little granny, he refers to her as.
Hi, everybody. When When Cecil first started recording the stories, he said you have to start, after the introduction, it has to start with the survey marker story. So that's why it starts with the survey marker story. These ribbons are sharper than arrows. I'll start my story during my healing journey. I took my sister Louisa, my little sister Valletta, their children, and 3 or 4 of mine to the Kitlope. That's when I repeat my story to them of where I was born, what I had done, the joy, and where to go and play. When we landed there this time, there was survey markers, something I'd never seen there. I went to go take a look. I walked the length of our little homestead, and there was a cedar tree standing there. I saw this tree where my granny would take a little bit of the bark in May and April when the sap is running. She made this box from the cedar bark enough to hold 24 fish, and that's how she counted the fish in the box to put away. That's what she got from that tree, and she don't touch that tree no more. She only take that much, and the tree is alive. When I got there, the tree had survey markers with black numbers. Oh, this is bad. I went back to Kitimat. Instead of spending 5 days that I promised the children, came back here to Kitimat on the 2nd day. I said, these survey markers are what I dread. These ribbons are sharper than arrows, and they will cut deeper than knives. I knew logging was coming, but not this soon. They were survey markers to put a road into where it was going to go through the place where I was born. For a moment, I was hesitant, you know. I was concerned about my family. I worked for the company Hurricane in Kitimat before they applied for a tree farm license for the Kitlope. I want you to know that I'm not against all industry, but it's how they take the resources out of our sacred land that is of Wacheid's concern. I saw what happened with West Fraser, the destruction around all the clear-cut logging, and now they got approval from the government for their tree farm license to log in the Kitlope. I told my wife, I'm going to fight for this place. We might lose our house. Our kids are going to high school and need all them things for school. The company that has the tree farm license I am working for. My wife May said, nope, you go ahead. I'll walk with you. And that's all I wanted to hear. I'll walk with you. And that was the beginning. And there's the trees where the survey markers were tied that little Granny had used for stripping the bark. Launch a supernatural canoe. Next story. I told Gerald Amos, an elected chief who would become more of a son to me, a brother, and our hereditary chief, Simon Hall, that I'm going to put my life on the line for this. I'm going to go fast for 4 days, and after 6 to 8 days, come looking for me in case I have a motor breakdown. I went up on the riverbank by the tree of my little granny. I hear my granny's spirit. Masi Saksus, not saying it right. What are you here for? I tell her, because they are going to destroy, they are going to kill the Kitlope, our valley. In my dream, there will be a lot of people coming to help, she says. You launch a supernatural canoe, and no matter who comes aboard to help us save the Kitlope, there will be lots of paddlers. That canoe would never be filled. Take a person that will guide you through uncharted waters to save the Kitlope. I stayed another 2 days, and I had my answer from the tree. Gerald, Sister Louisa, and I in the canoe, because Louisa was there when I picked up the survey marker. She was there from day 1. In my dream, my little granny asked me, who is going to be chief at the front of the canoe? She didn't give me an answer, but I thought about it and put it on the table. I would like to nominate Gerald Amos to be our leader and spokesman. He understands more about the adopted language than any of us put together. He will speak for us. We went round the table and everyone nodded their head. I said, I'll steer the boat and be in the stern to see where we are going. We were in uncharted waters, and each time I always had Gerald in the front of the canoe. When you're on the river, he's the one in the front that looks after everybody's safety. Gerald was our spokesman. My sister is in the middle. Sometimes the river is so wide, and she'd instruct. We all agreed. I went back to my hereditary chief. Our hereditary chief says, go on that journey, but ask the other chiefs. I asked every one of them, will you walk with Wacheid in my journey in the Kitlope? I said to my sister Louisa, we've got to walk softly. We've been hurt and damaged so many times. I thought about my brothers in the Union. What are they going to do? Am I taking their bread and butter for fighting for what I believe in? Fighting for the Kitlope, for my people? I have 3 paddlers now, 4 with the hereditary chief, 4 clans that they were in, and the canoe was filling up. The hereditary chief asked Gerald, do we have any funding in the kitty to get our people together? Gerald said, yes. Pick the day inside 1 week from today. Gerald called all the people together. I told my grandchildren to get a few of the survey markers and then stay 4 or 5 days in Kitimat. The beginning of the battle started there.
Thank you, Brioni. We'll finish off there. There's a lot of content to get through, and it's just so it's so interesting to hear how the story started out for him, and the journey started out by the tree markers.
One of the things that was really interesting, by Cecil telling me about the survey markers, I realized that when people were colonizing your territory, that was the first thing that anyone ever knew that someone had arrived in the territory was the survey markers. It was the first sign. And I realized the significance of it. I couldn't understand at the beginning. I said, why do you want to start a story with survey markers? And then I really, it so hit me one day when Cecil explained how that was the first evidence that someone had arrived in your territory, didn't have the courtesy to even talk to anybody, and just laid claim to it. Surveyors were the first people to arrive to claim sovereignty.
Wow, that's actually my first of hearing that too. That was the first indication of arrival of anybody to, and reading back on it too, knowing that after the amalgamation was when the power plant was built and situated in Kimano. Like, I had no idea. It was like, I kind of knew the dates, but honestly I never thought back to it was that close in time, and clearly no coincidence that happened and took place all for the sake of that project, you know.
Yeah, it was literally months. And when they brought that piece of legislation to the legislature, it was basically read in one day. It was one of the biggest projects in the world. It was affecting an area, this extraordinarily large area, you know, reaching all the way back into Cheslata territory, Haisla, Hanaxla, and the parliament, the politicians of the day passed the act literally in a day. And the few people that tried to stop it were just blown away. Yeah, it was literally months. The amalgamation was the final paving the way for the project.
Yeah, I had known that there was government involvement there, but I had no idea to like what extent really, like, and to even research on it is a little bit painful to like kind of go back in history and kind of uncover, you know, how it happened. You know, even the documents that kind of talk about those instances where we tried to fight for our land but were outright refused. And in fact, there's a document that shows that it was the Farmers Institute in the area, and it was the settlers who decided whether or not we were allowed to have a say over our land here. And that blew me completely out of the water to know that bit of history there. So yeah, I feel like it's important to continue on sharing, you know, stories from Magic Canoe of Wahid, because his fight is a fight that's still ongoing today, and it's not just his or Haisla or Hanaxila individually. There's a collective fight going on right now for equality. I think that's what makes me emotional about it, is that this fight isn't over. His fight started a long time ago, and to know the history of it, it's pretty empowering to actually read what he went through to protect the Kitlope, bring that back a totem pole. Yeah. So thank you.
What his granny, and what is Annie Paul? What an amazing person! Your great granny, an amazing people for fighting. I don't know how they did it. I just don't know how they did it. Kept going. Yeah.